Okay, so we're looking at sequence one. So a repeating loop like this will give you a spiral with sharp corners. And it'll look different, of course, depending on the numbers in there. If that random number here is a 2, it's sort of like rolling the dice. If it's a 2, now we run this loop. Well, this one's a little different. We repeat 10, we go forward, and then there's another repeat loop where we go forward a little bit and turn right for a little bit. This is a way of rounding out the edge. This is going to give us a round edge instead of a sharp edge. Still the basics, basically the same idea though. It's just a spiral, except this time it has a rounded edge based on these parameters. The third one is a little bit more complex because it uses its own variable. This is the only place where we use this loop count variable. And then just to remind you, under variables here, you can make a variable. You can also right-click on these to change the name of them if you want to. And there are two commands. You would set the variable to a certain amount, or you would change it by a certain amount, meaning add that amount. So we start this sequence by setting the loop count to 0, just to reset it from whatever's happened before. And then we go into another repeat thing. We drive forward for a certain amount, but this time there's a mathematical formula, and I used some of those green operators for it. It's going to start off with 300, but then it's going to take the loop count variable times 30 and add that to the amount that it's going forward every time it goes through the loop, which means that it's going to be spiraling outward. It's going to get bigger as it goes. And then this smaller repeat loop is just the same as before. It's just rounding off the edge. And then the important thing here is within this repeat 10 loop at the end, I'm changing the loop count by 1, meaning I'm adding 1. It starts off at 0, and now I get to the end of the loop and I add 1, so now it's 1. And I go back to the beginning of the loop and I drive forward from, more, and then I change it by 1, so it's 2, and so on. So every time you go through, the amount that you go is bigger and bigger. So let's go back to that original main sequence and see where we're at now. The wall check thing, that's the last thing I'm going to show you. But there is a sequence 2 that runs after sequence 1. So let's see what that is. Okay, well, it starts off rather similar. I set check 2. Well, it's a different variable. Set it to a random number, 1 through 3. If that number equals 1, then all I do is go forward a little bit. So that would be an action to take between the larger loops or the spirals. If the number is 2, then I have a repeat thing where I go forward and I'm turning. So that would be another example of a rounded edge. And then the third option is to do the rounded edge, but then do another set where I'm going backwards, which creates a sort of seagull shape. And you can see a couple of those it's made here. So it's going to make some kind of shape between the larger spirals. And again, it chooses between one of those three randomly. Okay, so let me show you the wall check thing. This is kind of complicated. It uses position sensing. I'm going to hide this for a second.